Hey folks, welcome to another installment of MSP Business School. As always, I'm joined here by Tim McNeil and Robb Rogers. Thank you guys, as always, for being a part of our little tiny half hour in space.
Good to be here.
Put in time.
Yeah.
Yep. So, I think today we determined we want to talk a little bit about, the concept of account management and what that really means to an MSP and the lines that are getting blurred in the world of account management, both in the resources that are supporting it and the tasks that these people are tasked to do. So I think that's where a little bit of our focus is going to be today, guys. Any thoughts that you want to open up with?
Yeah, I mean, like on my side, I feel like in the last 8 years, 7 years, the role has dramatically changed, right? What used to be the person was, just in charge of refreshes, was in charge of not messing up the account and being the one that had to deal with the angry client. That's what it used to be. Then the vCIO was this person up on a pedestal with a spotlight on them. And, they were the next person that could handle Johnson & Johnson or United or, one of those huge corporations. They were the CIO. And it just seems like that whole thing has been changing over the last 8 years here. And like now we're kind of in this flux.
Yeah, I mean, I think more and more people, more and more companies are, they're repurposing an employee that was already in the company. And one thing that I've heard a few times, and just over the last few months, is we had somebody that was in the wrong seat. Everybody loves them. They're a good fit, good culture fit. Again, they weren't in the right seat. We didn't really know what to do with them. We didn't want to get rid of them, and we made him an account manager. I've actively heard that probably 4 or 5 times in the last 2 months, and that in some instances it's worked, and a couple others it hasn't.
Yeah, and now they're client success managers.
Yeah.
So now we got that word in that phrase in here too. It's just like the whole thing is shifting. But at the end of the day, how can you be different than the next MSP? And how can you increase your profitability and your MRR, right?
Yeah. So, I'll kind of share with you guys a couple of things that I'm seeing out there first, right? So like everything in the MSP space, what people are trying to figure out how to do is to take a process that's owned by a expensive resource, make it repeatable, and plug lower cost resources into it. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's how we all grow. It's how we all expand. And there's a methodology to that. But there is something you have to assess in that process for the account manager. They have to be the customer advocate. They have to be technical enough that they can hold the conversation and be able to bring back the right requirements to the end users, right? They have to have some level of business acumen. If you're all tech, and I'll just play it from the vCIOs that come in through my doors. If you're an all tech vCIO, all you're doing is giving them, the gap facts, what's going on, and then a roadmap. You're not going to help them connect the dots. And these are, the customers we serve, that small and mid-sized business community, for the most part, needs to be guided because they're not IT pros. So that's kind of the big picture is, it's following that process of standardization and then moving down field with the resources. But the problem, as often is the case, but where's the professional development to fill the gaps in those resources that don't have that capability? Tim, what you defined is probably the most common thing I see. We got this person that doesn't sit in the right seat, but we like them and the customers tend to like them. So let's just make them an account manager, technical account manager, vCIO, customer client success manager, because these are becoming interchangeable titles for kind of almost the same resource. But what's not being taken into consideration is, okay, this person who is not struggling over there, how are you sure they're going to be successful here? And what's going to drive success? So the MSPs that have kind of figured that out are the ones that have started trying to build a structured process, use platforms like, vCIO Toolbox to help guide that. But it doesn't change the fact that all I'm selling you is a process. The system is how you support that process and standardize what the output is. So if you're not putting some refinement or some training on top of that, it could still be the same result for your company. And, the one thing I think most MSPs understand, actually, there's really two things that go hand in hand. One, the customer is a gift that keeps giving. There is so much opportunity. And, there was a lot of worries in the MSP community as break fix started changing, as things shifted to the cloud. There wasn't going to be new revenue sources for those big box sales they used to make. We were even discussing before this episode a little bit, Rob, you and I, about, NRR versus MRR and how you've really viewed the AM position as an NRR position. Yep. And I said, geez, that's interesting to me because I really see it as an MRR position as we move forward. But the reality is, like everything else, MSPs adapt. And now they're seeing that, hey, I can mine for gold and recurring gold that intrinsically makes my company more valuable through that seat. So what am I saying here? Quite simply, well, we all want to have these customer success programs, and part of them are the business reviews or whatever else. But you really got to be saying to myself, who are the people holding those roles? Can they really support the customer? Are they more business focused than tech focused? Because that's what you really need in that role. Can they be proactive in understanding what's going on in the client environment to get out in front of problems and projects the proper way? Can they be the advocate for the client? And can you allow them to be the advocate for the client when the client might be a little less than happy too, and be able to be that intermediary and have some power there? It's a lot to think about, but that's kind of what the role is morphed into over time.
Yeah.
And to your point, Rob, I was right there with you. The vCIO used to be this guy that, ooh, there's Joe. Joe's the man. He used to be the CIO at insert Fortune 1000 company here. Yep. And he brings all the knowledge to the table. Well, let me tell you, a lot of that knowledge doesn't translate. It doesn't translate for a couple of reasons. No offense to Joe, but it doesn't translate because one, MSPs in small business move faster.
Yep.
So there's not the same approval processes. Two, the scale is not the same. So there's not necessarily as much downfield impact. And three, the small business owner still makes decisions on emotion, where big corporate tends not to. And that's because the emotion is still what's going on with their business and the budgets they can sustain. And if you're going to have a real good customer success person, these are the things that they need to be trained on, the soft skills, to really be able to understand the customer and say, look, I got to be sensitive to some things here. We've talked about this in previous episodes. Look around the office. If they haven't upgraded furniture in 25 years, what makes you think they're going to upgrade the server twice as large, next year, right? You really got to do an assessment to this process. And then when you do it, build your roadmaps and do all the tactical steps to keep engaged.
Well, one thing we were, one thing we were talking about before this that I think it caught both Rob and I off guard, quite honestly, is your opinion on how many companies this person in this seat can manage. We've always heard and seen and kind of come from the mindset of, one person can probably service 50, 75 clients, and you had a way different take on that, which I kind of thought was interesting. So.
Well, I'm going to say it with some bias, but I'm also going to say it with some reality of what I see, right? Mm-hmm. When you talk about the 75-person account manager, which used to be the common thing in the big bars and all that kind of stuff, mm-hmm. where it was all product centric and most of that relationship was held at, taking in orders, staying in front of the customer that way. I could see that number. Mm-hmm. But now start thinking about really building relationships and think about your MRR clients. If I'm managing 75 of them and I got 20 days in a month, I can't even see each of them in a quarter, theoretically, if I have to go physically see them. Now let's put the in-person QBR aside and really say what's going on here. For me to touch 75 customers every day, every month, I got to be touching 1.5 of them every day in some format. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of noise. And how do I manage this noise and not make mistakes and miss items, right? Mm-hmm. We can automate so many things in the process, but at some point the customer still needs to be contacted and conversations need to be had. Mm-hmm. What I think I'm seeing more of is a refinement of the account manager role vCIO/client success manager into one where they're more engaging with the client, right? And it's really looking for mining for that gold, because the second part of that equation about the gift that keeps giving is the reverse side, and you got to run over the cat 9 times before they're going to kick you out, right? So if you can get the right person as the intermediary, and what we see customarily, look, all MSPs are different. They have different approaches to this. And when I run my ramp camps, it's different. What I really see is the average person that's acting in the vCIO role is averaging, I know you guys think this is crazy, but only 12 or 13 customers. I might see it go up to 25, because the reality is you got to hold these meetings, and you got to prepare for these meetings, and you got to develop a roadmap, and you got to get understanding of what's going on. And you've got to reach to other people in your organization to see what's going on, maybe at the field, at the touch points you're not getting, to really get armed with information to take it next level. So when I see how people are usually running these QBRs, it's about, let's play it with that, kind of 15 as a number. Well, out of that 15, let's say 5 of them are your A-level clients. These are the 20% that make 80% of your revenue, and this is your account manager's share of that. Well, those are going to be high touch. There might be communication every single day with those customers. There might be a lot of, things that there might be a lot of moving parts, bigger, more complex projects, all the reasons we put them in that A category. Then you've got your B customers, and you might see those guys only twice a year. Then you got your C customers, which are annual. Well, if you got 5 C customers, that's 5 appointments a year, or 5 review events a year. You take your B clients, and let's say they were another 5, that's 10 events a year. And then you take your final 5, and that's a total of 20 events a year on top of it. So you got 35 events you got to do over the course of a year. So that's 3 a month. Now, I'd argue you can possibly get, and this is where I say you can stretch up to a higher number. You could probably get to 4 a month on that. But but then the question is which part of that mix they come from, right? But the reality is, if you're going to do a good job, you've got to make sure that you're staying in tune and looking at those things. And where's the opportunity come from? And this goes back to the NRR versus MRR thing. Project, the server replacement is now being knocked out cold and generally being replaced by a SaaS opportunity, or moving to a cloud-based environment to support it, right? So we've got all these little migrations, and these migrations all of a sudden stack up other MRR opportunities. The other thing is the security education piece, and this resource is now being tasked with doing the security education through this process as well, to help build this out. So again, if you're going to do this comprehensively, there's no way you can do that to 75 people. You're never going to have your eye on the ball for that many people. Now, that said, you may take 50 of your low-end, low-value customers, those people that in aggregate only contribute 10% to your overall revenue. But hey, you like that 10% because it also is your margin, your net profit. Well, you might stick somebody on that one that has 50, 70 accounts because they're still doing the break fix model with you, or they're still doing just, replace a laptop here, do that there. So, very long-winded way of saying, the roles morphed, I think, a little bit. And with it taking on some of the traits of that high-level pedestal standing vCIO and bringing it down to the account manager level, there's no way you can do all that effectively.
Yeah, I would say if you were looking at it from a TAM's perspective, or a technical account manager, that way makes sense, right? You have that technical person who you could speak to security, and I would entrust them with a white glove type of scenario like that, where they're doing 3 to 4, QBRs per month, right? Or just reviews per month, as they're going through, because mostly they're there to stop the uh-ohs, and they're there to upsell. Right. The sales account manager, to me, is a more first, second job out of college person who is there to do all the refreshes, to do the actual writing of all those quotes for the technical people. So you don't have your technical people doing the secretarial work. They can do more of the solving of the issues instead of just doing the technical write-ups. And then once the SAM gets it done, then they send it back upstream. Is this what you were looking for? So you have your low wage worker doing the low wage write-up, and you have your high wage worker doing the big brain stuff. And by separating out that side of it, you increase your ability for your technical people to solve issues, and they don't have to do the grunt work. But the sales account manager is able to talk to clients better than the technical person is, so they can influence better. So once they get that refresh proposal done, they can handle 75, up to 75 people, but they're not doing any, proactive stuff, right? They just don't have that kind of brain.
That's more in the reactive.
Yeah, they're more of a reactive way to, separate out those things. It like is from what I've seen.
See, but what I'm hearing here is two different roles entirely, in my opinion, right? So there's the account manager that's more the, let's just for argument's sake call it the TAM right now, right? The technical account manager, or the technical alignment manager, the business facing person that's going and conducting the bigger meetings and helping the customer grow. And then you're really talking about what you described there, more an inside sales rep, making sure the low hanging fruit doesn't go away. Well, that's always going to be a lower level guy, right? Now, I would even argue that some of the good account managers, you don't want them doing some of that as well. You don't want them doing the warranty lookups and the things like that, because there's no benefit to them for those kind of things. You want that to be part of a plan, transfer to the inside sales rep and let them stay on top of it. These guys that are in that more, success role, in my opinion, are the ones that are trying to hear what the key initiatives are that the customer's going after, understand what the move and shake of that business is going to be. Are they acquiring customers? Are they growing through acquisition? Are they growing through geographical expansion? Are they growing through hiring? And then start giving them a plan to execute on that. And then, oh, by the way, pushing it down to somebody that can put the parts quote together, the bill of materials together. Then maybe they're writing the scope of work to support the entire project, and that just becomes filler paper, right? To get to the number there.
I mean, like the SAM in our world. So what we would do is, as soon as we got any type of deal that could be registered, even if we weren't sure about it, we would immediately call up the SAM and say, hey, go register this deal for here, here, and here. And, they would make it all up and register the deals before our competitor could register it, right? And, that's a SAM, an entry level role that can eventually be promoted up to a TAM if they've got the, the brain for it, right? On the DISC profile, their IS or IC, they can eventually get to that technical piece to it. But there's no way I would let a, person that's just getting into the workforce out of college, first, second, or third job, be in charge of my client.
Do that advanced stuff. The
big brain stuff. They try to sell them security, and, they're 22, 23. I wouldn't trust that coming out.
A lot of times when I see somebody at that level, there's still an investment on the company because an engineer usually has to go with. When the meetings are there. And again, there's nothing wrong with that two-headed monster approach too, especially if the engineer has it there. But I think what you're hearing is, there has to be a business side and a technical side to this equation.
Once you get up to that technical account manager level, it combines, but it takes a while.
So I don't know. That's kind of what I'm seeing in account management these days. Not much additional I can really add to that other than, every MSP runs it a little bit differently, who they choose a little bit differently.
You've done it. You hear a lot of MSPs right now, and everybody's concerned with growth. I mean, where do you see the first hire as a company that's growing, right? That 5 to 8 person company that they're at the point where they have disposable income. Is it a technical account manager they hire first? A sales account manager? Is it a hunter? Like, where would you? What
I usually see is they'll go to a hunter. So what I see most often as people enter into ramp camps when they're at that size is the CEO is not yet ready to step away totally from customer facing role. Can't do that. The company hasn't hit that plateau yet. So they'll bring in a hunter. And they'll bring in that hunter for no other reason than to go and try to do the prospecting work and get that senior executive some appointments. Then that senior executive is taking a more active role in the nurture process than they did before. Usually what it is when they get to that stage is they're finally, if they were a technical-led, technical-founded company, able to finally step away from the screwdriver. So they, the first thing they do is make sure that they get their technical teams in place. Then when they take over sales, they then take over sales till they get to the point where they've basically done friends, family, referrals, and everything the way they go. And then they'll bring in that hunter at that same point. Then they'll take on that more vCIO role, which is more traditional to what we were talking about earlier, Rob, with the higher level guy. But it's really more because they already have the relationships.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
it's a
they've got
natural
to, and then they've got to
Yeah.
build those relationships up. And then the goal is really a year later. That's when they're going to start looking at their team again and go, okay, now who can I rise up into the vCIO role so I can start stepping away and just focus on the business itself. And my customer is going to be comfortable with that because they've already seen me move from tech to more business facing role to now the company's at the size of where they need a CEO. And we're still small enough that they know if there's a real problem, they can get me on my cell phone for an escalation. Right. So it's kind of a natural evolution. I think most MSPs will say they see it in some format like that, but that's what I see most often is just this kind of graduate up. And that person that comes in always tends to be the hunter. And then they need guys like you to support them because that hunter will fail in that environment if nobody's guiding them from a sales perspective or from a sales perspective.
That is very true.
Yep.
Yeah, but I see most of the time it's make sure you got a good technical foundation and then build on the relationship building. And there's usually an inflection point where now you got enough customers that you do got to get prescribed with it too. That customer that's at 8 people is probably now getting just past the $1 million barrier in most cases. Let's call it somewhere around there. And now they're getting to the point where if they don't start dividing labor and if they don't start getting more customer facing, they're going to lose some of those customers just out of inattentiveness. And that's kind of what drives the process.
It's more of a reactive process is what you're saying?
Up until that point, I mean, you could even argue it's even a little bit bigger than that before it really makes the transition. I see, when I look at the people that implement and execute, they probably start around 2 million for the most part in our platform. And that's because they're trying to go beyond just showing a refresh map. They're really trying to dig in and understand with the customer.
And that makes sense. I look at the clients that we have, they've got client success manager, insert title here, insert, what we're talking about here. And they're all 2.5 and above. So that makes sense. I can see that.
And that's right about the time where they start to realize that refresh cycles and past and present performance is just not going to grow, land and expand your company, right? With your clients, you've got to have those future meetings with your clients. And I think
at that point, it's kind of, Rob, it's kind of like what we talk about, right? Customer service. Everybody, what's the you go on a lot of MSPs websites and they're great at customer service. Well, doing that refresh cycle, like that is just kind of business, right? If you're not doing that, you're not in business.
Yeah,
it goes back to your sales call where you say, look, what makes us different is our people. Well, I hope you hire good people, and I hope you can do the job. That's kind of the price for admission. Now, what are you going to do beyond that, right?
We speak in English.
That's right. Our core value is integrity.
Yeah,
well, I hope so.
Yeah.
Have I told you about our honesty?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all the cliches out there, and we don't mean to make fun of them because we all say them. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah,
but but the truth of the matter is, it's much more. The customer is much more informed. Digital, the millennials are taking positions of responsibility now. They're digital natives. They've been using this stuff since the day they were born. And as a result, it becomes more important to bring value and help them understand how they're going to accelerate and be able to expand and where the scale factors are and where the limitations are, so they know where the break points are in what the process is than ever before. And the education we used to do is kind of innately already there. You know what I mean? And it's a different ballgame, and those that adapt will continue on. When you look at the MSPs that most, if you're the MSP that's looking at another MSP and saying, what makes them so much more successful than me? Watch what they do, not what they sell. Watch, what are they doing? Are they holding events? Are they staying in contact? What do they do? When you go talk to those customers, you're competing against them. And what are they promising that's different than you? Do a course. I don't know how many MSPs are out there doing the postmortem after a loss on a sale. Not to digress here, but that postmortem is going to tell you where you need to improve,
it's huge,
or what was perceptionally not there, and then do something about it.
Well, and just to, again, this is a little off topic, but one thing that we used to do that we recommend pretty much everybody does when you're going out on sales calls, whether you win or lose a deal and you're going up against another MSP, ask for ask for their agreement. Like, the worst that prospect is going to say is no.
Yeah.
I mean, and the best case, they give it to you. They don't really care if you see the numbers. They don't really care if you see the name, and that will help you. That will help you be bigger, stronger, faster for the next time you go up against that company.
Yeah.
It works.
And also be prepared that you may lose to somebody inferior, and it's because you didn't communicate it appropriately and you didn't articulate it back to what the customer needed. And that's the art form that really needs to be held these days by the account manager at every stage of the way.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we've taken that topic as far as we should for today. Because I think if we jump into anything else, we'll tack another 15 minutes on this conversation. So with that, Rob, do you want to take us home?
Yeah, sure. This has been great. If anybody, we are going to be putting this episode on our MSPBusinessSchool.com, anywhere you do get your podcast. And we are opening up, for questions out there. So if you have any questions or sales things that you've been stuck on, like a presentation or a proposal or a client that you've been stuck on, shoot us over a question and we'll be happy to answer it on air. Just let us know and we'll take care of that. Brian, Timmy, do you guys have any closing thoughts before we break today?
I am good on my end.
I've got nothing else to add. I think we've done it all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. As always, thank you very much, guys. And we look forward to talking soon.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks.